The neighbor's mom said, "You're too young to understand." But that night, I understood everything without words. It started the way most forgettable mornings do, half awake, the rain tapping soft against the cafe window, and the smell of burnt espresso grounds. She always came around 10. Never late, never early. The kind of timing that makes you think she didn't plan it, but she did. She sat by the window, third table from the counter, always with a book half open and a notebook she rarely wrote in. I didn't know her name then. Everyone just called her Mrs. Vale. I only knew she lived next door to my best friend, and that her son was studying abroad. That morning, I caught her folding a napkin, over and over, into a small, uneven square. It wasn't nervousness. It looked more like a habit, like her hands didn't know what to do with stillness. When I brought her coffee, she looked up and smiled faintly. "You remembered," she said. "2 sugars, no cream," I replied. "Most people forget after a week. I won't forget regulars." She laughed under her breath. "You'll learn to. It makes things easier." I didn't answer. She went back to her book, and the sound of the rain filled the space between us. There was something quiet about her, not shy, just elsewhere. Like her thoughts were always mid-sentence. Sometimes, she'd stay until closing. I'd find her staring at nothing, eyes unfocused, as if she'd misplaced something in her own head. That day, when she left, she said, "You're too young to understand." I didn't ask what she meant. Maybe she didn't mean it for me at all. Later that night, I passed her balcony on my way home. Her light was on, soft yellow spilling through half-closed curtains. She was sitting by the window, a mug in her hands. Her hair was tied loosely, strands falling out, and she looked, not sad, just undone in a quiet way. I stood there longer than I should have, pretending to check my phone. There was a message I'd typed 3 times and never sent. "Did you mean what you said today?" I deleted it again. Instead, I scrolled through my playlist, pretending to look busy, pretending not to feel the air shift when her shadow moved past the curtain. The next morning, she came in later than usual. No book this time, just her phone and a distant look. "You weren't here last night," she said softly, as if she'd noticed. I said. "Just later." "Oh." She smiled, small, unsure. Maybe I just didn't look. Her fingers brushed mine when she handed me her card. It wasn't intentional, but neither of us moved right away. Just that second too long. When I gave her the receipt, she said, almost to herself, "You really are too young to understand." Her eyes lifted slowly to meet mine. "But you will." I wanted to ask what she meant again, but the words felt too loud for that kind of moment. She left without saying goodbye. That night, my phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. An unsaved number. Just one line. "Are you still awake?" I stared at it for a long time. The rain had started again. And somehow, without replying, I already knew. I understood exactly what she meant. The text from that night never turned into a conversation. I typed, "Couldn't sleep either," deleted it, and turned off the phone. But the next morning, she came into the cafe again, hair still damp from the rain, sleeves rolled up, like she hadn't slept much either. "You look tired," I said. She smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep. The storm kept me up." "Yeah," I said. "Me too." We both knew that wasn't why. She took her usual seat, and for a long time, neither of us spoke. Just the sound of coffee being poured, spoons clinking, someone laughing from the other side of the room. When the rush ended, she called softly, "You've got a minute?" She'd brought her laptop, the screen cracked near the hinge. "Can you fix this? It won't stay open." I pulled up a chair beside her. The smell of her perfume, something faint, like citrus and paper, made me forget what I was supposed to be doing. She said, "I used to fix things myself. My ex hated that." Her laugh was short, like she didn't mean for it to come out. He'd say, "Leave it. I'll do it later." But later never came. I tightened a screw that didn't need tightening. Maybe he didn't know how to. Her eyes flicked toward me, steady, unreadable. Maybe. The laptop clicked shut. She thanked me, and I said something stupid like, "You're welcome," even though I wanted to ask about the ex, about her son, about why she'd texted me at midnight. But I didn't. She sipped her tea, looking out the window. "You remind me of him sometimes." "Your son?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "He was your age when he left. Quiet. Thoughtful. Never said what he felt until it was too late." She paused, tracing her finger around the rim of her cup. "I used to think silence meant peace. But sometimes it's just fear wearing good manners." That stayed with me. We didn't speak for the rest of her visit. When she got up to leave, she placed her empty cup on the counter and said, "Don't stay small, just to stay safe." Her hand brushed mine again, just barely, but it was enough to stop time. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Later, when I wiped down her table, I noticed she'd left her folded napkin behind again. Only this time, there was a line written in tiny handwriting inside it. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I stared at it for a long time, unsure if it was meant for me at all. Still, I folded it back, the same uneven square she always made, and tucked it into my pocket. Her tea mug sat cooling in the sink, and for the first time, I understood how silence could say too much. I hadn't seen her for 3 days. The cafe felt quieter without her, like someone had turned the sound down just enough to notice. Then, one evening, I ran into her outside the building. She was carrying groceries, the paper bag tearing slightly at the corner. "Let me help," I said, already taking it before she could answer. She looked at me, a half-smile tugging at her lips. "You don't give people much of a choice, do you?" "Guess not," I said, though my voice came out smaller than I meant. Inside her apartment, the air smelled faintly of basil and something warm left on the stove too long. Books everywhere. A quiet mess that looked lived in. "Sorry," she murmured. "Didn't expect company." "You cook?" "Try to." A pause. Then, softer, "He used to hate the smell of garlic. I still forget sometimes and open the windows." I didn't know what to say, so I nodded, setting the bag on the counter. When I turned back, she was watching me. Not in a way that asked for anything. Just looking. The kind of look that makes you aware of every inch of space between two people. She said quietly, "You shouldn't be here." "I know." Neither of us moved. The clock ticked too loudly. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. Then, a knock at her door, sharp, sudden. We froze. Her breath caught. She gestured toward the hallway. "Go," she whispered. I slipped into the kitchen as she opened the door. It was my friend, her son's best friend, calling out, "Hey, Mrs. Vale, have you seen my charger? Mom said you might have it." Her tone changed instantly. Lighter. Familiar. "Oh yes, come in. It's in the drawer." Their voices blurred together while I stood still behind the counter, heart beating too fast. I could hear her laugh, softer than usual, practiced. When he left, she leaned against the door, exhaling. That was close. I stepped out, forcing a small smile. "Guess I shouldn't be here after all." "You really shouldn't," she said again. But she didn't ask me to leave. We stood there, the silence heavy but not cruel. She brushed stray hair from her face, hands trembling just slightly. Her eyes lifted to mine, then down again. "You make it hard to remember what's right," she whispered. I moved closer, just enough for her to feel the warmth between us. No words, just breathe. Her fingers grazed mine, a slow, uncertain touch, and the air shifted again. It could have happened right there. It almost did. But she stepped back. Smiled barely. "You should go." I nodded, though my body didn't want to move. At the door, I heard her voice, quiet, almost an echo. "Don't misunderstand this." I turned once, met her eyes, and said, "Too late." It had been weeks since that night. She still came to the cafe, but never at the same time. Sometimes late morning, sometimes not at all. We spoke less, polite, distant, like strangers who shared a secret once and decided to pretend they hadn't. One evening, I saw her sitting alone on the park bench behind the bookstore, the one under the willow tree, half hidden from the street. I almost walked past, but she looked up. "You're avoiding me," she said. "You stopped coming," I replied. "Maybe that's the same thing." I sat beside her. The bench was cold. She was holding her phone, but not looking at it. "Your friend came by yesterday," she said quietly. "Asked if I'd seen you lately." I felt a pulse of panic. "What did you say?" "That I hadn't." Which wasn't true. The way she said it, calm, certain, felt heavier than any accusation. She finally looked at me. "You don't realize what people see. How they look at me when you're around." "I don't care," I said. "Maybe you should." Silence. Just whined through the trees and a child's laughter somewhere far off. Then, softer. "You make me feel seen again. But that terrifies me." Her voice trembled only once, terrified. I wanted to tell her she wasn't wrong, that I felt it too, that fear disguised as warmth. But the words wouldn't come. She glanced down, rubbing her thumb against her ring finger. There was no ring, but the gesture remained. "I keep thinking about that night," I said finally. "The message. what it meant. She smiled, small and pained. It meant I was lonely. And I forgot how dangerous that can be. I swallowed hard. Is that all it was? Her eyes met mine, steady. Do you want it to be more? That question, soft, quiet, bare, hung in the air like something sacred and wrong. I couldn't answer. She looked away first. You remind me of who I used to be, before I learned better. Her voice cracked slightly, just once. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it hurt. Then maybe I'm too young to understand again. She turned to me, eyes wet but clear. No, she said. You understand too much. A long pause. Then she reached out, fingers brushing the back of my hand. Just a whisper of touch. Neither of us pulled away. The sky was turning that fragile kind of blue that only happens before night. Someone's going to get hurt, she said. I already am. Her hand lingered, then fell away. We sat there until the street lights flickered on, both of us pretending the moment hadn't just crossed a line we couldn't uncross. When she finally stood, she said only, "Tell me, if I asked you to stop, would you?" I didn't answer. And maybe that was the answer. She didn't come to the cafe for a week. Not a message, not a glance from the window, nothing. I didn't know what I expected, maybe her laugh, a note, even just a smile that said I saw you. But mornings passed like blank pages. My phone sat untouched. Then one evening, I found her on the fire escape outside her apartment. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just leaned against the railing, looking at the city lights in silence. You're late, I said. She didn't answer. I pulled a chair closer. Something happened. Her eyes flicked toward mine and back to the street below. She started, then stopped. Life's complicated, she said finally, in that quiet, practiced way that tells you everything and nothing. I waited. She waited. I didn't want to, she continued, voice barely audible, drag anyone else into this. Into me. I nodded, though I didn't understand. Entirely. Your son, I said softly. Your ex? She laughed without humor. Both. And more. Things I haven't sorted yet. Her shoulders sagged, like the weight of all those unsent words rested there. I wanted to tell her I didn't care, that age, exes, past mistakes, none of that mattered. But the words got stuck. She leaned back, pulling her knees close. I shouldn't have sent that text. Midnight things, they mean too much sometimes. I said nothing. We sat in silence. The city hummed, the occasional car passing below. And for the first time, I noticed how her hands trembled ever so slightly when she clasped them together. I didn't feel heartbroken. I thought later, walking home. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next day, she was gone from the cafe again. No note. No hint of a visit. I kept the napkin she had left weeks ago, folded and fragile, in my pocket. I traced the tiny words she'd written. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. And now, they felt suspended in the air, waiting for a reply that would never come. I typed a message to her at midnight. Words I couldn't send. I understand. I'll wait. Deleted it. And that evening, I saw her balcony light turn off earlier than usual. The door never knocked. The seat where she would have sat remained empty. Everything was paused. Nothing had ended. And maybe that was worse. It was raining again. Soft drizzle that made the city glow and the smell of wet asphalt. I found her on the staircase landing outside her apartment, coat clutched tight around her, umbrella barely open. You came, she said. Not a question. I wasn't sure I should, I admitted. She shrugged, looking tired. Maybe you shouldn't have. We stood there, the sound of raindrops between us. I wanted to say so many things, about the night we almost crossed, the words left unsent, the pause that stretched weeks, but only managed. I thought about you. Her eyes softened, and for a moment, the world shrank to the space between our breaths. She laughed quietly, almost to herself. That's all you're going to say? I shook my head. No. I thought about what it would be like to just be here, with you, and not mess it up. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the railing. Then, without really noticing, she touched my sleeve. A small contact. Nothing dramatic, but it held the weight of everything neither of us said. You can't stay, she whispered. I know. I shouldn't. Stop, I said gently. Just stop. I don't need you to fix it. I don't need an answer. Her gaze met mine. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, softer, you've been patient. Too patient, maybe. I smiled faintly. Someone has to be. The moment hung. The rain fell around us, steady and calm. Her hand brushed mine again, fingers lingering this time. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a promise. Just acknowledgement. I'm glad you understand, she said finally. I do, I said. And that was it. No big confession. No dramatics. Just a shared quiet. A bridge built from all the things left unsaid. She stepped back toward her door. I'll see you, she said. I nodded. Okay, I replied. She disappeared inside, the door closing softly behind her. And I stood there a moment longer, the rain soaking my jacket, heart calm but heavy. Because understanding doesn't always mean possession. Sometimes it just means you're seen. And for now, that was enough. Months passed. The cafe's routine hummed along. The same smell of espresso, same clatter of spoons. I came earlier now, 8:47 a.m., the exact time she liked her black coffee, no sugar. She arrived quietly, like she always did, but now there was a subtle ease between us. No stolen glances or unsent messages. Just shared space and small acknowledgement. One morning, she sat at the park bench behind the bookstore. The willow had grown fuller. I carried her usual tea, barely warm. Thought you'd like it, I said, setting it beside her. Her fingers brushed mine lightly. Thank you, she said, soft as a secret. And I realized this moment, ordinary and slow, was everything we had worked for. We spoke less than before, not out of distance, but because words weren't necessary. The quiet held more than conversation ever could. Sometimes she laughed at something trivial, a stray dog, a misread sign, and I watched her, memorizing the way her eyes crinkled, the subtle curve of her smile. Other times, we sat with our drinks, not saying a word, letting the city hum around us. She still folded her napkin into tiny squares. I kept one in my pocket, a fragile token of how far we'd come. I didn't ask about her past or her ex. She didn't ask about my mistakes or doubts. We carried our baggage lightly, each aware that it existed but never letting it weigh down these small, earned mornings. One evening, after a long shift, she appeared on the fire escape, rain dripping from her hair. Tea, I offered. She nodded. No hesitation, no words needed beyond that. And when she lifted the cup, fingers brushing mine, I finally understood. Not the kind of understanding that demands answers or explanations. The kind that only comes when two people choose the quiet, careful patience of each other's presence. She smiled. I smiled. And that was enough. Later, as I walked home, the city glowing faintly under streetlights, I realized something. All the messages unsent, the pauses, the near crossings, they weren't obstacles. They were the story itself. Life didn't rush us. It whispered, nudged, waited. And now, finally, I felt the weight lift. The ache of longing softened into warmth. The awkward silences became familiar, comforting. In a cafe, at 8:47 a.m., with tea and black coffee, folded napkins, and quiet smiles, we arrived. Not with grand declarations or dramatic gestures. Just here. Together. And only we would know what that meant. Did this story stay with you? What kind of